I'm going to be going over some homeowners and dwelling questions here. So first question is, which of the following types of personal property has special theft limits under an HO3 policy? So when you look at this question, you want to look specifically at what the question's asking, right? So they're talking about the special theft limits. So when you look at those answer choices, you have TVs, clothing, firearms, appliances. So what is covered under those special theft limits is going to be firearms. All those other choices, yes, those are covered as personal property, but the only one that has those special limits of liability would be firearms. TV, clothing, appliances, all of those are covered under your standard personal property coverage, right? Coverage C on an HO3 policy. Firearms, again, that falls under those special limits of liability, which I will show you right here. This is what they're referring to. So those special limits of liability, these are things of a higher value and it's specific to theft, right? So firearms would be reimbursed for $2,500. Again, all those other answer choices would just be covered under coverage C, personal property. Next question says, which of the following is true about theft coverage under an HO3 policy? So first thing you want to think about is, what is an HO3 policy? HO3 is your special policy, right? So we know that is going to cover the building on an open peril basis and the personal property on a named peril basis. That's the first thing we know. So it's asking about coverage of theft. We know theft is a basic covered peril on a homeowner's policy, right? When we think about our perils, the theft is the only added peril from, if you compare the perils from a dwelling policy, basic dwelling policy, to a basic homeowner's policy, theft is the only added basic peril. So the answer here is C. Theft is a covered peril for personal property, right? Had this question said, which of the following is true about theft coverage under an HO3, under a DP3 policy, the answer would be theft is not covered, right? So we do not have theft coverage under a dwelling policy. It would have to be endorsed, right? That would not come standard. But on a homeowner's policy, you do have theft coverage automatically included on your basic policies. Next question says, the standard homeowner's policy excludes theft in which of the following locations? This answer here is D, a dwelling under construction. Reason being is it needs to have its own separate coverage, right? The builder's risk, or also might be referred to as dwelling under construction, right? You might see it as either term. But that is why theft coverage is not covered on a building that is under construction. It would need to be covered under builder's risk. All of the other circumstances there, theft coverage would be covered. Next question says, which of the following perils is not covered under a DP2 broad form? So again, you want to take a second here and think about, what is the DP2 form? And it's telling you right in the question, that's the broad form, right? So you want to start to visualize the broad perils. So what broad perils do we know are covered? Weight of snow, sleet, or ice, accidental discharge of water, freezing of plumbing, right? Those three are all broad perils. The question is, which one is not a broad peril, essentially, right? That would be an earthquake. Earthquake coverage across the board, whether they're asking about dwelling, homeowners, commercial. Earthquakes are always, always, always going to have to be endorsed onto the policy, right? They would have to have the earthquake endorsement. So the answer here is C. Next question says, in a homeowner's policy, which coverage pays for the guest's medical expenses after slipping on the insured steps? This one is going to be answer C, coverage F, medical payments to others. And the way this works is that medical payments would pay first if the expenses exceeded the medical payments, right? The minimum amount of medical coverage that we have to have on our homeowners policies is $1,000. If the damages, if the guest's medical expenses exceeds $1,000, then it would tap into your personal liability, right? Coverage E. But the first coverage that's going to kick in for somebody's injuries, right, those medical costs, that's going to be your medical payments to others, coverage F. Next question says, which homeowners form provides the broadest coverage for buildings and personal property? This answer here is D, right? D is HO5 is the comprehensive form, right? That provides the broadest amount of coverage. Your two forms that are the special policies or special cause of loss forms are your HO3 and your HO5. The difference is that the HO5 provides open peril coverage on the building and the personal property. And HO3 provides open peril coverage on the building, but named on the personal property, right? So that's the difference, and that's why an HO5 provides that broadest amount of coverage. Your other choices there in HO2 and in HO3, those are both on a HO2 and HO4 rather, those are both on a named peril basis. Next question is, a person's home is damaged due to a water pipe bursting. Which type of policy is most likely to cover this? So when you get questions like this on the exam, best advice is you want to think about what peril that would be, right? What are they talking about when they say water pipe bursting? What peril would that be covered under? So here they're talking about plumbing, right? So which cause of loss form, right? Which homeowners policy is going to cover plumbing? Well, if you can picture those perils, plumbing is a broad peril, right? So that's going to be covered under A and HO2. HO4, and if you kind of just went through and did process of elimination, you can at least get yourself down and eliminate some of the answer choices. For example, in HO4 is your renter's policy, right? So that's not even going to cover the building coverage, that's coverage for the personal property of the renter. So B is automatically out. Your HO1, that's your basic form, right? That's only going to cover those basic perils, right? Fire, lightning, removal, ride or civil commotion, vehicle damage, aircraft damage, etc. Plumbing is not a basic peril. Again, it's a broad peril. And then in HO8, that's for your older Victorian homes. So again, nothing to do with the question here. So even if you weren't sure that water pipe bursting fell under plumbing, you could probably do process of elimination and maybe figure that out. And then last question, which policy section provides defense costs for lawsuits due to bodily injury or property damage to others? This is going to fall under liability. So answer choice D. So that's section 2 of a homeowner's policy. Your section 1 is going to be coverages A through D, right? Coverage A is your building, coverage B is other structures, coverage C is personal property, coverage D is loss of use or additional living expense. That's section 1 of a homeowner's policy. Section 2 is your liability, coverages E and F. E is for liability and F is for medical payments. That is that is section 2 of a homeowner's policy. So what's going to provide coverage for lawsuits due to bodily injury or property damage to other people? That is going to be liability coverage. So I hope that helps. That went through a handful of dwelling and homeowners questions. As always, guys, we always have additional resources out on our website for on-demand programs, a full on-demand program where I go through every single chapter, teaching you section by section. We also have a study guide, practice exam, anything